isn't one canal, but three. Every one of them different, every one with its own reason for existing, and every one of them now struggling for survival. This is the Neath Canal. And this is the Tennant Canal, where regular weed cutting enables the water to flow to the nearby oil refinery. And that's kept the canal in business. And this is the Swansea Canal. No boats and low water, but high hopes, and the determination of one man that this canal will soon be back in business. "200 years ago, these three canals were the motorways of their day, but then railways and fast roads edged them out of the way and they fell into disrepair, abandoned and forgotten. But now there's an ambitious plan to link all three waterways into a cruising leisure circuit, attracting tourists and bringing new prosperity to this part of South Wales. Here on the Tennant Canal, someone who certainly knows the history of the waterway and appreciates its potential is its owner, Mrs. Coombe Tennant. Mrs. Coombe Tennant, what's the history of this canal?
Well, this was built by my husband's great-great-grandfather, who came down to Wales in 1816 and fell in love with the place and thought that there were great possibilities for the development of this end of the Vale of Neath. And he had the idea of building a canal, which he began to do. He had great opposition from various landowners. He had no Act of Parliament behind him, so he just had to struggle on and do it the best he could. But he managed it, and it's 9 miles long. It goes from Aberdillis down to what's now Swansea Dock, and in those days was Port Tennant. And this aqueduct, which is very fine and stone built, was built in about 8 months throughout one winter, and it was opened in 1824.
Was it built for any economic reasons? Did he want to bring
indeed,
coal?
Yes, it was to bring the coal from up the valley,
right,
and also copper ore and various things like that. And he made quite a bit of money, and he used to charge £1 a ton for bringing cargo across this aqueduct. And in later years, the only way to get to Cadoxton Church without going a very long way round was to bring coffins down from Tonner and villages up here. He used to come down across here, and he used to charge £1 for every coffin that was brought over the aqueduct. So you can see he was out to, well, make his mark where he could,
yes,
and make the honest bob or two.
Now, there's talk now of reopening all of this. What do you think about that? Is that a good idea? Would you like
It's a wonderful idea. I'd love to see it, yes. It'd be great.
Do you think it's actually feasible?
Yes, very much so. I think if everyone was to cooperate and with some considerable amount of help from outside, I think it could be done, and I think it would be wonderful for the whole of this valley on down. But I hate to see the lock like this. It'd be marvellous if it was up and running again. And there's no reason why not. We've got the water, and we've got people who can manage it. So it just needs a bit of willpower.
Of course, it'd be a wonderful economic boost for the area as well, wouldn't it?
And we could have boats going through and use it for schools and educational purposes. And I think it could have a new lease of life.
This area has always been a popular place for children. Anita Jenkins has fond memories of her childhood here. As a child, you actually remember swimming in this canal?
Yes. Quite a few of the boys used to swim around further away from the rock, right near the basin. And I can remember my father, encouraging me to go into the water. And it was a lovely warm day, but I was a bit afraid of how deep it was going to be. And I'm feeling the warm silt at the bottom and wondering if I'd have leeches sticking to my leg when I came back out, but I was very lucky.
And there's a picture, isn't there, of you as a baby in your father's arms, a postcard?
It's showing some of the boys of that time doing the same thing that I did about 9 years later.
And your dad tells an incredible story about the horses bringing barges down as well.
Yes, yes. I was surprised at that myself. He lived in Bailey, as they called it. It's High Street in Aberdillis, and a single-storey cottage. And he said in the night, you know, when they were in bed, he could look out of the window and see the barge in the moonlight, see the barge and the horses with sacking tied over their hooves, bringing gunpowder down from the Gilliney's powder works, taking them down to the docks.
So
they would use it otherwise, of course, they might strike a stone and set the barge alight.
That would have been one big bang, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? By Aberdillis, that would have been, I think.
Yeah, right by Aberdillis. Him as well.
The Tennant Canal needs regular maintenance and especially weed control because it supplies water as a coolant to the local petroleum refinery. Foreman Andrew Evans says it's used for other purposes too.
Tesco trolleys, mattresses, you name it, we get it all, yeah.
Yeah. But it's also excellent for wildlife, isn't it? You know, I see that you leave the edges, and there must be lots of all kinds of plants and animals and insects in there.
Yeah, oh, we've seen otters, kingfishers, yeah, we've seen otters ourselves at the overflow in Jersey Marine. One just swam past us, so, it was unbelievable. That was a real sight. Like I worked here 19 years and first time I'd seen one.
That's fantastic. And it must be lovely, you know, because you're out of doors most days, and especially when it's like this, it's like having your own canal in a way.
Yeah, all right. Well, we look at it as our own canal, so we maintain it, we look after all the machinery that runs it, and yeah, we all the boys, we all look after it, you know, as our own, basically.
Would you like to see this open up, or is a part of you going to think, well, you know, this is not my canal anymore?
Well, no, it would make a big difference to my job if it was opened up, obviously, because the canal would be used, there wouldn't be so much weed growing profusely on it, but then you get a lot of the people bringing rubbish and likes of it, so it's 6 of one and half a dozen the other, really.
And I suppose some of the wildlife will disappear inevitably as well, will it?
Definitely. You won't see half, the kingfishers and otters and stuff, I wouldn't have thought.
So there is very much a plus side, but a bit of a downside as well.
I think it would be a good thing for people to see it, because obviously it's fairly unknown. A lot of people don't really know it's here, because it's so overgrown as well. People are discouraged from walking the banks, which I suppose isn't a good thing for people who are interested in it.
It is fantastic, isn't it? Because it's like one of Wales's hidden gems in a way.
Yeah. And it goes through so many different areas. It goes through sort of an industrial area, then through like a peat bog. So there's so much different, plant life and wildlife on it.
Oh, it's lovely. It really is. And I mean, look at this. Not another boat. It's fantastic, isn't it? These weed cutters are pretty savage bits of machinery, a bit like a massive water chainsaw.
Right.
So that's the weed cutter, is it?
That's one of them. We've got two. We've got one. The other one is, not dissimilar to that. Then.
Looks like
auger drive at the back, and the old finger mower style cutters.
At the front. Looks like a mad green swan, doesn't it? With the wings at the back, and they say big head at the front. David Painter of the Countryside Council for Wales took me to see some rare creatures, raft spiders. Now, are we going to see this giant spider, do you think?
Well, I hope so. We'll have to be a bit careful.
Okay.
Females at this time of year will be sitting up in full view. Right, there's one. Oh, and another one behind.
Yeah,
and they're both females.
God, they're absolutely enormous, Dave.
Yes, and remember, she's had all her eggs, so she's actually smaller than she could be. Imagine her with a full abdomen full of eggs.
Gosh, she's actually quite beautiful, isn't she? Almost a velvety brown with a yellow
brown
stripe.
With cream stripes, yeah.
And I can actually see her eye. See one of her
The thing
eyes,
is, she's guarding the young spiderlings which have just hatched. So what we should see somewhere around there is a mass of little spiderlings in a ball, about the size of a golf golf ball. So I can't quite see them from here, but yes, there we are. On the water's edge.
I've got you. I've got you.
So there'll be about 150 young spiderlings there.
Oh, I see. Yes, she's got them, as you say, in a ball with all web around them.
That's it. She puts a little web up and sticks the egg sac at that stage, and then they all hatch. And they stay together, often for about a fortnight. And they're not feeding, so they've had one meal from their eggs, the actual egg shell, but now they're just staying together. They will run away if you get too near them.
Yeah, we better not do that. They're absolutely enormous, Dave. How big are they?
Well, a full-grown male, leg tip to leg tip, will be just over 4 inches. Yeah,
it's a fair
and a
size.
female with eggs it can be a large sort of 50p with legs.
Yeah, and long legs too.
And long legs.
That's a big spider. It really is a big spider. The furthest one of these two females, I think, has got a sack underneath her.
Yes, you're right.
Yes, she has.
Yes.
Yeah, she definitely has.
She's carrying it, so she's not ready. They're not hatched. She's not ready to place it into her web now at this stage.
So for the first few weeks, she'll carry that ball around, the egg ball around her.
Yes, carry it around underneath her, yes. And it's amazing that they will still guard them and look after their young, which is quite unusual in the insect world.
That's fantastic, and they're absolutely enormous.
It is the largest spider found in the United Kingdom. And
it is it? And
yeah.
very, very rare, Dave.
Very rare, yes, very rare. Only 3 sites left. Here, one in Sussex and one in East Anglia.
When I first read that this had been found here 3 years ago, whatever it was, I sort of thought to myself, I must one day get down there and have a look at him. So, you know, this really is a bit of a dream come true for me.
Good, I'm glad you have. I'm glad we've seen them on what is not a very sunny day.
Well, she's sunbathing, isn't she? On that leaf there, she's not moving at all. This boat operates daily here on the Neath Canal on a short 2-mile round trip, and it gives visitors a taste of what cruising on the canal could be like. Currently, this is the only narrowboat operating on the Neath Canal. But if the Neath and Tennant Preservation Society achieves its ambitions, it'll be joined by many others. Chairman of the Society is Peter Ricketts. Is it going to be feasible to link all 3 canals?
Yes, well, the Neath and the Tennant canals are already linked. It just means restoration of a lock and Aberdalis aqueduct, and that will give us 8.5 miles of canal on the Tennant Canal in addition to the Neath Canal, 13 miles.
Now, you've already restored some areas, haven't you?
That's right, yes. From Resolven up to Ysgwrfa, that was done by YTS and Manpower Services schemes who were sponsored by the old Neath Borough Council. 7 locks were restored, a new aqueduct built, and several overbridges, access bridges were rebuilt as well. We as a society look towards this canal as putting some zip back into the valley. It'll help to regenerate tourism, especially for the valley, but more so for the whole of Wales.
Now, many people think that canals are places for old people to chug along at 3 miles an hour, or for dog walkers, but they're actually great places for young people to have fun. Instructing and for learning how to canoe, I suppose a canal like this is ideal.
It's perfect, really. Look, you're in an enclosed area, and so you know there's not vast expanses of water. So if anything does go wrong, because as you can appreciate, health and safety is a must.
Yeah.
You know, The safety of young people is paramount in everything that we do. So this would be an ideal spot.
She did well then. She went nose down all the way along. It's amazing what they
It's
can do with
incredible
it.
what you can do with them, actually. Yeah.
There are plans now, Mike, to restore this canal. Is that going to affect your activities at all?
Well, I don't think so, really. You know, if the authorities are wise, I mean, this is an ideal opportunity to make the best use of the canal for all aspects of society, really. I mean, this is perfect for us. And, I mean, those kids there, they might go on to work in the leisure industry. Well, they've got to learn somewhere. And this is perfect. I mean, from a social point of view as well, you've seen dog walkers along here. And, you know, it's an ideal time for the environment to link in with the rest of us around here. I think it's perfect for it.
Mike Heath with some very energetic members of the Delice Valley Canoe Club. One way of attracting attention to this area and to get people away from 21st century life and main roads only a stone's throw away is through the Alexander Cordell Walks. Cordell was famous for his novels about the early struggles of industrial Wales, and that, of course, included the canals. He actually became president of the Neath and Tennant Canal Preservation Society, and one of his books, Song of the Earth, is about the canals in this area. Often, especially on Sunday nights, the Vaughans of Rheola would come up from Aberdelyce Aqueduct in barges with choirs, and beautiful it was to hear the full harmony of the ancient hymns, and always they sang in Welsh. Sadly, the village of Aberdelyce was almost completely wiped out when this dual carriageway was built, but you can still see one feature that has strong connections to the local canal network. This Turner painting from the 1750s shows Aberdelyce Falls and the massive water wheel. This modern working replica is a reminder of when tin plate was manufactured on the site. Vic James is property warden of this National Trust treasure. How did the tin plate industry actually work here?
Well, tin plate industry was established here in about 1830. The site itself actually has been a water-powered site for 400 years. And the tin plate industry was driven by a water wheel. That was the main energy of the site itself. And the Aberdelyce Falls was the supplier of that energy to turn the wheel. The water wheel was used to drive rolling mills and shears for cropping iron and so forth along the way.
How important was the canal then to all of this?
Canals played an important part in industrialisation of the Vale of Neath and Aberdelyce and other industries. Canals played an important part in transportation of raw materials brought into the site, such as wrought iron bars and limestone and so forth like that, and coal, which was an important thing. And the site itself here was circulated. It's a small site, as you can see when we look around the site itself, and the platform where we're standing at the moment there used to be a tram road, and horse-drawn trams were the main transportation around the site itself. They would have circulated the whole site, and the raw materials and the export of tin plate would have been taken on the trams, down along the tramways to the canals and the Aberdelyce Basin area itself for export out towards all over the world.
The Swansea Canal has not been used for over 50 years and in parts is looking very sorry for itself, but help is on its way. Canal enthusiast and passionate advocate of its restoration is local man from Pontardawe, Clive Reid. Why is it so important for you, Clive, to see the Swansea Neath and Tennant canals back open again?
Lots of different potentials. Tourism, I think, is the major one, but also urban generation, urban renewal, recreation facilities for local people, education, lots and lots of opportunities. But I think the one to really make money is tourism potential. We're halfway really between the coast and the Brecon Beacons National Park, and this part of South Wales is underdeveloped for tourism really.
This is the Swansea Canal here.
Yeah.
What would this particular spot have looked like, say, 150 odd years ago?
Well, when the canal was built in 1796-98, this Clydach was a hamlet of about a dozen cottages.
Was it?
There were no towns in the Swansea Valley whatsoever. So the whole valley and all the towns and villages were all developed because of the canal and this industry. So this is quite a small, little place, agricultural. But once the canals are built, it all turns into industry, industrial villages, industrial towns. But we got this lovely aqueduct here. We cross in the lower Clydach River. Again, it's got its own identity in the village of Clydach. It's known as Radidoc. Now, when these canals were built, all the words were in English: canal, aqueduct, locks, etc. So that invent new words for the Welsh language.
Right.
So the lock is cleaved door, or water lift. And this one, the local people trying to pronounce the word, the aqueduct in Welsh, became Ar Aqueduct, and eventually Ar Aqueduct Radidoc. So people in Clydach know this as Radidoc, and not an aqueduct.
And that's a word unique to this area,
Unique
is it?
to anywhere. There's nowhere else in Wales that actually has this particular sort of word.
Radidoc.
Radidoc.
I suppose all the old mines and all the steelworks and everything, that's all gone now, is it?
Just about. We got this Pontardawe foundry alongside us, and this is the last of the industries that use the Swansea Canal.
That's it now, is
That's it. This is the last one, and sadly this closed 3 weeks ago. There's 20 local jobs gone, which used this foundry. But the importance of this foundry, it showed what the canal was actually here for. It brought down coal to use in the foundry. It brought in metal, and this foundry produced the everyday needs of the homes: the ovens, the bread ovens, the saucepans, the railway lines for the coal mines. It produced all the iron artifacts for the industry and for the community. And it's gone.
I suppose without the canal, none of this industry would have been here.
None of it here at all. There'd be no coal mines, no ironworks, no tinworks, no potteries, no foundries, no towns. There'd be no Clydach, no Pontardawe, no Ynysmeadow, no Ystalyfera, no Ystagunlais, and no Abercraf. The whole community, the whole valley, owes existence to the canal.
It's a pipe dream for many people, but can it actually be done? Seriously, Glenn?
I've got a vision,
Yeah.
and not just me. I'm just a spokesperson for thousands of other people who live in this valley and in South Wales. Our society, the Swansea Canal Society, has got about 180 members. Most of those people, they all support what we're doing. They'd like to see some form of heritage being retained. It's their memories. It's where their ancestors grew up, their ancestors worked. And they want to see this as a reminder, really, of the heritage of the valley and of the communities. But also, what we've got here are wonderful opportunities for recreation. But also for the whole of Wales. We can create this using the 3 canals, the Swansea Canal, the Tennant underneath, linked back into the marinas in Swansea, a 35-mile regional waterway. That's what we've called this plan, this vision, this future.
An impossible dream? What do the experts think? Andy Goss is a British waterways engineer. Andy, there's a great deal of enthusiasm locally to reopen this whole canal. But as an engineer, just how practical is it?
From an engineering point of view, well, 200 years ago, the old engineers have put the foundations in. So it's just for us modern engineers just to come and restore the hard work that they've done in the past.
But you know, you're going to have to replace locks, you're going to have to put in bridges, you're going to have to lift bridges. Surely it's going to be a difficult task.
Purely practical terms, it's achievable. It's been done before. It's something we've done in various places all over the country. Take the Huddersfield Canal, that was, well, a similar condition to this. While they were building the canal in under modern factories, actually going into the factory, digging the floor up, putting the canal in, then covering it over. So it's definitely achievable. It's a lot of work. From an engineering point of view, it's possible. It can be done.
So can we expect to see this kind of restoration taking place on the Swansea, Neath and Tennant canals? The engineering know-how exists, and there's certainly a high degree of enthusiasm to link up the canals from volunteers and supporters.
It'll help to regenerate tourism, especially for the valley, but more so for the whole of Wales.
Oh, I think it's a brilliant idea. Yes, I hope it happens. And there's no reason why not. We've got the water, and we could have boats going through and use it for schools and educational purposes, and I think it could have a new lease of life.
I've got a vision. We can create this 35-mile regional waterway. That's what we've called this plan, this vision, this future.
Well, it's a wonderful dream, and who knows, one day it may well come true. And that's it. That's the end of a series that's seen us travel along all 5 Welsh canals, and each one has its own unique character and characters. They all go through some magnificent Welsh scenery, and they all support some wonderful wildlife. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.
We have a brand new series on BBC Two Wales and BBC Two Dublin next week, exploring the great outdoors of Wales.
Cause of accident, film crew.